The morning wind in Altai, Xinjiang, carried a strange feeling that day. After spending so many unforgettable days in this remote land, surrounded by endless mountains and grasslands, today was finally the day we had to leave. Before packing up and continuing our journey south, we loaded an entire truck full of supplies and equipment and gave them all to the auntie who had taken care of us during our stay. Out here in the wilderness, meeting kind people feels warmer than anything else. During the cold nights and exhausting days on the road, Auntie's family treated us like their own children. So before leaving, we wanted to leave something behind for them too. Come on, Auntie, try it. Comfortable, right? She smiled shyly while testing the gear, laughing happily as we stood around joking with her family. The atmosphere felt warm and emotional at the same time. Thank you so much. No need to thank us. We should be thanking you instead. We wish Uncle and Auntie good health and happiness. After saying goodbye, we climbed back into the truck and continued driving south. The road stretched endlessly across Xinjiang like a giant ribbon cutting through mountains, rivers, and grasslands. We drove for nearly another 1,000 kilometers before finally arriving in Nileki County, a beautiful place hidden deep within the valleys of Xinjiang. The moment we arrived, one of the local brothers told us something unbelievable. This reservoir used to farm salmon years ago. Then one year the cages broke during flooding and thousands escaped into the wild. If your luck is good, maybe today you can catch salmon here. The second I heard the word salmon, my eyes lit up instantly. Wild salmon in Xinjiang? And caught using hand rods? That sounded completely insane. As we reached the lake, I immediately noticed dozens of anglers already sitting along the shoreline. Every single one of them stared intensely at the water, each using only one simple hand rod. Some attached small bells to their rod tips, waiting for even the slightest movement. The brother who recommended the spot walked over, laughing. "Bro! Last night I completely destroyed you drinking alcohol." I shook his hand while laughing helplessly. Honestly, my head still hurt from the previous night, but the excitement of fishing instantly woke me up. I looked around again and asked carefully, "You guys really catch salmon here using hand rods?" "Of course," he replied confidently. "Only hand rods." The more I listened, the more unbelievable it sounded. The reservoir here was incredibly deep, dozens of meters deep in some areas. Because of that, many local anglers didn't even use floats. They simply dropped their bait deep into the water and waited patiently. But after watching everyone fish for a while, I suddenly realized something. Their methods looked too passive. If I wanted to dominate this place today, I needed a completely different strategy. Without wasting time, I took out my 7.2-meter rod. The setup was heavy duty, a 5.0 main line, powerful salmon hooks, and enough strength to battle giant fish in deep water. Standing beside the icy reservoir with freezing wind blowing across my face, I slowly cast out the sacred first rod of the day. The bait flew beautifully through the air before disappearing into the dark blue water. Perfect cast. Now all we could do was wait. To attract fish into the area, we started throwing fish pellets into the water every few minutes. Local anglers told us salmon here couldn't resist the smell. Scoop after scoop splashed into the reservoir while we stared at the rod tip without blinking. 1 hour passed. Nothing. Another hour passed. Still nothing. Even the lure fishermen nearby hadn't gotten a single bite. Some looked frustrated already. Others had started questioning whether salmon were even active today. At that moment, I suddenly thought of something important. Salmon are originally ocean fish. Their instincts are completely different from ordinary freshwater fish. Instead of sitting near the bottom waiting for food, they constantly swim through the water, searching aggressively. That was when an idea exploded inside my head. What if we use a sea fishing float set up with shrimp? The moment that thought appeared, I knew everything was about to change. While everybody else continued sitting motionless beside their rods, I immediately rebuilt my entire setup. I attached a 2.5-gram float tied on a 2-meter leader, added split shots, and finally hooked on an entire fresh shrimp. Now this looked dangerous. The advantage of a drifting float rig is that the bait moves naturally with the current. Underwater, the shrimp drifts and sways like a wounded creature struggling to escape. To a predator like salmon, it becomes almost irresistible. I grinned confidently. I'm seriously a genius. Then I launched the setup far into the reservoir. The float landed softly and began drifting slowly across the surface. We waited silently. Nothing. I twitched the rod gently. Still nothing. So we moved to another position and cast again. A few moments later, bang! The float vanished instantly beneath the water. Fish on! The rod bent violently as if it had hooked a moving truck. My drag screamed while the fish exploded across the lake with terrifying speed. How do you explain this, brothers? The nearby anglers instantly jumped to their feet and rushed toward us. No way! That's definitely a salmon! The fish surged deep again, pulling line non-stop while my arms started shaking from the pressure. Salmon fight completely differently from ordinary fish. Their power feels explosive, almost violent. After several brutal runs, the silver body finally appeared beneath the surface. A giant salmon! The crowd exploded immediately. Bro, that fish is huge! When we pulled it onto shore, everyone stood there staring in disbelief. Over 6 gin. My very first salmon ever. I couldn't stop laughing. I already told you guys, I'm done being low-key today. Since we had left early in the morning and nobody had eaten breakfast yet, we decided to prepare sashimi right there beside the lake. Freshly caught wild salmon in the mountains of Xinjiang. It honestly felt unreal. I carefully sliced open the fish while everyone gathered around watching. The bright orange meat looked unbelievably fresh under the sunlight. Then I slowly peeled away the skin and cut thick slices of sashimi. The moment I tasted the first bite, I froze. The texture melted instantly in my mouth. Sweet, rich, cold, and unbelievably fresh. I had never eaten salmon like this before in my entire life. This is absolutely insane. After eating, our energy returned instantly, and we rushed back to fishing. Then something unfortunate happened. Right when another fish struck, my phone overheated and shut down automatically. By the time it restarted, the battle was already over. But what mattered most was lying beside me on the rocks. Another giant salmon. Even bigger than the first. 10 gin. 5 full kilograms. The people nearby completely lost their minds. This guy is unstoppable. At that point, everyone started gathering around us trying to understand the setup. Meanwhile, we packed the massive fish into ice immediately because I wanted to bring some home for my parents. But the craziness still wasn't over. As we moved farther along the shoreline, we found another group of anglers struggling without bites. I smiled and said quietly, "All right, brothers, time for another lesson." We cast the float and shrimp rig again. Almost instantly, another strike, then another, then another. Fish after fish smashed the bait aggressively. At one point, we were literally talking casually when suddenly the float disappeared again. "Bro, look! Another big one!" One giant salmon escaped beside the shore, causing everybody to scream in frustration. But only minutes later, another monster slammed the bait again. This fish fought even harder. The rod folded nearly in half, while the salmon charged through deep water with unstoppable strength. My arms felt like they were about to break. Finally, after an exhausting battle, we dragged it onto shore. Another 10 gin salmon. The crowd erupted again. How do you even explain this? Honestly, the secret was simple. The shrimp. Before casting, I slightly crushed the shrimp head so its scent spread faster underwater. That powerful smell triggered the salmon instantly. From that point onward, the action became non-stop. 2 gin fish, 5 gin fish, 6 gin fish. Every single one fought like a monster. The strength of salmon is honestly unbelievable. Compared to ordinary freshwater fish, they feel like underwater rockets. Every strike sends adrenaline exploding through your body. Eventually, our cooler box became completely full. There was literally no space left for more fish. At that moment, I finally sat down beside the reservoir, exhausted but completely satisfied. The cold wind blew across the water, while the mountains of Xinjiang slowly turned golden under the evening sunlight. Today was legendary. Tomorrow we still needed to drive hundreds of kilometers again to buy fuel and supplies, but honestly, I didn't even want to leave anymore. Today I truly made a name for myself at this lake. Every nearby angler came over asking about the float setup and shrimp technique. Nobody expected such an aggressive sea fishing method to dominate so completely in fresh water. The salmon simply could not resist it. As the sun disappeared behind the mountains, I looked at the cooler packed full of giant silver fish and laughed one final time. What a day, brothers. Absolute jackpot.